Welcome to the Zenshin Self-Defense Academy, and we are at the EAT Dojo today. I have several videos that I want to film. Next few days probably won't be any training videos as far as actually physically doing something. I got a few things on my mind that I want to chat about, and I'm going to take the time to do that right now and maybe get 3 or 4 of these out of the way. So the first one that I want to talk about is a concept that I call billboard to stamp. So when I teach, especially when it's somebody very new, I teach everything as if it was a billboard, huge, a lot of extra or unnecessary, and those two words probably shouldn't be used in that directly like that, but that's how I describe it. A lot of extra and unnecessary movements, slow, static, and like I said, large movements. When once you get better at it, the movements get smaller and smaller, and you can see where this is going. So when we begin, we move like we're on a billboard, basically. So everything is over exaggerated, everything's larger, everything's a lot slower, and there's minimal movement when it comes to that sort of thing. Now, once you get decently proficient at the billboard, then we move down to a poster. And again, it's the same way, it's just becoming more condensed. Some of the, and I don't, like I said, I don't like using the word unnecessary, but some of the movements become smaller. There's a lot less exaggerated movements. It becomes a little more condensed as we get more proficient. So billboard to poster, and then the poster becomes a sheet of paper, and then the movements become more crisp. Some of the movements that you kind of grow out of, you don't necessarily need anymore, and it still works because you're starting to be able to manipulate the uke in a much more profound way, and you have to do less and you encourage them to do more, is basically what it is. And footwork becomes tighter, smaller, and in some aspects just non-existent, because you're able to manipulate your opponent to do all that for you. And then lastly, we get down to a postage stamp, just a little postage stamp. So and that's when you should be able to do things as if it was realistic. So I say this, I tell everybody this, and a lot of people who train with me really have never seen a phone booth, honestly. But you should be able to do every technique that we do, whether it's with or without a weapon in our hands. We should be able to do it inside of a phone booth. If you can't do it inside of a phone booth, you're expanding it too much. So you're moving too much. Something's going on where if you can't do it inside of a phone booth, then you need to work on it. But that's my concept of billboard to postage stamp. Along the way, you stop becoming static and you become more active. Now, this is one of the biggest things that I try to really wait until towards the higher ranks before I start really getting into active training. Most of all the training is done in a static manner. What I mean by that is when we grab somebody or when we punch somebody, we don't do it at speed, but we'll grab them and hang on to them, and the person that's doing the technique will allow them to grab. The higher rank you get, then the less that needs to happen, and the technique should happen before the uke even grabs you. But we don't get into any of that until much the last couple belt ranks before we even start getting into active training. Static training is preferred because if you start out with active training and realistic movements and training practices, people tend to skip steps and just jump right into it, and their technique doesn't improve the way it could if you would take the time and go slow and go step by step. If you just jump in and just start wailing on each other or whatever, technique just sucks, and you really don't gain any real benefits when it comes to that sort of thing. So you start out huge like a billboard, and sometimes you do a complete tenkan when a complete tenkan isn't necessarily required once you get the technique down to the point where you're really, really good at it. Then maybe you can just do a box step or a heel toe or something like that that would completely work the technique for you, but is much, much smaller. So billboard, then we go to a poster, and from a poster we go to a sheet of paper, and from a sheet of paper we go down to a little postage stamp. So that's my concept of billboard to stamp.